Welcome back, folks. This one's a little less formulaic than usual, but I still need a script, so expect me to look away every so often. We're asking the question tonight of whether or not Sargon of Akkad, sometimes called Carl, is a hypocrite for his recent tiff with Anita Sarkeesian. If you've had your head in a hole, or just been a sane human being who spends their time worrying about real life instead of YouTube personalities and YouTube's VidCon, then you may have missed how Anita personally singled out Carl during a panel. She was co-hosting a panel at VidCon, which Sargon was watching, and then she said this.
Right? If you Google my name on YouTube, you get shitheads like this dude who are making these dumbass videos that just say the same shit over and over again. And like, I hate to give you attention because you're a garbage human. Whatever, dude.
In response, Sargon took to Twitter to criticize her statement and proceeded to make a video where he calls for her to be removed from yet another VidCon panel, which he plans on attending. You can watch his video for the full reasoning behind this call for deplatforming. What I want to discuss is the reaction to his call for deplatforming by, well, the universe. Namely, he was swiftly and soundly criticized for being a hypocrite. Chrisiosity spent quite a bit of time calling him out on it and arguing with those who insist that he isn't being hypocritical. And I don't mean to single out Chrisiosity here. This is due to the simple nature of who I do and don't follow on Twitter, that I see a lot more of her conversations on this topic than I do of others. Please do not go harassing her for speaking honestly about how she sees these events. Besides, she's got a point. On its face, whether justified or not, Sargon's call for Anita to be removed from a VidCon panel is directly in opposition to many statements Sargon has previously made in opposition to deplatforming, Milo Yiannopoulos and others at universities and on the internet at large. Further, Sargon has generally been an extreme supporter of free speech. In light of these, Sargon appears to be on face a hypocrite. Where things get murky, and why I felt it was worth talking about this at length, is that this presumes Sargon's commitment to deplatforming was ever unconditional, or that he believes free speech is so unfettered as to invade privacy and property rights. I bet you didn't expect me to argue that deplatforming can be a privacy issue, or an issue of property rights either. VidCon is a private event, closed to the general public, held on private property, and supported by private contributions in the sale of tickets to private individuals. It is not a public forum. It is not a public venue. One simply cannot walk into VidCon. Which leads into whether or not Sargon's opposition to deplatforming is conditional. To my knowledge, all of Sargon's opposition to no platforming has been directed at public organizations, speech in the public square, or the use of tactics that violate the law, private contracts, and accepted social norms. Demanding that a publicly funded university deny an invited speaker their right to speech is to ask that a government entity, funded with your tax dollars, silence someone. In the United States, this is a constitutional issue, since the government is now using its power to control who is allowed to say what and when. There are well-established exceptions to this, such as calls for violence, but at large, they don't get to do that. This has been the single largest issue on which I've personally seen Sargon tackle when it comes to deplatforming. He's spoken out against those who call for campus speech codes at public universities. He's criticized Milo Yiannopoulos protesters forcing schools to cancel events or actively disrupting his events. And when they aren't public universities, you may find that he's pointing out people who are breaking the law through vandalism or assault. See Berkeley for one example of that. Or they're demanding that the school break their contract, whether it's the one they have with Milo, whom has been contracted to speak at the university, or with the campus group that has invited him using the powers imbued to them by their university through another contract to invite speakers to the campus. Or they've ignored accepted social norms by interrupting the event with whistles, loudspeakers, and just taking over the stage at the event. When he's talked about deplatforming on Twitter or YouTube, the examples that I've found are situations where someone has been false flagged, which is a violation of the user agreement, a legally binding contract for those doing the false flagging. Either that, or he's accepted the reason for the deplatforming, see the bearing copyright controversy, but argued that once they've resolved this issue, the person should be given another chance on the platform. Whether or not any of these tactics are acceptable to you is a separate point which we can debate elsewhere. But if Sargon's opposition to deplatforming is driven by the nature of the platform or the tactics that are used to achieve that end, then it's not hypocrisy for him to call for Anita's deplatforming at a private event for violating a code of conduct by which they had both agreed to abide. Anita when she agreed to be a panelist, and Sargon when he purchased the ticket. Doubly so, since other than advertising his actions, Sargon is using the VidCon supplied methodology to make his request. The platform is a private one, and he is not violating the law, contracts, or social norms to remove her from it. Of course, if he's opposed to all deplatforming under all circumstances, then it remains true that these actions do make him a hypocrite. Where you can more plainly call hypocrisy on him is his claims to have been offended by her remarks after he has himself made harsher criticisms of Anita. But Sargon is a self-admitted shitposter. If you take his tweets at face value, you're likely being played. It's far more probable that he's demonstrating by parody that the remark from Anita and the response from her fans on Twitter and YouTube is exactly the sort of behavior Anita went to the UN to decry. Make of it what you will. There are good arguments on all sides, and Sargon's behavior on Twitter and YouTube makes it difficult for an independent opinion to be formed and draw a clear and honest conclusion. For my money, I think most people are going to judge his actions and Anita's through their prior opinions of these same people. Before I go, I do want to take a moment to thank Chrisiosity, Madwoman Muses, Galork, Bearson, and Manic Idiot for helping me formulate my thoughts on this matter. Links to their social media are in the description, as well as a very thought-out blog post by Manic Idiot on the subject. Take some time to check out each of them, but seriously, don't just go to be a jerk to them. There's no good to come from that. They all have interesting ideas that are generally well thought out, even if you or I disagree with them. I'm InaneDragon, and thank you for listening. You know the shill-related drill by now, so have a good night.